nice to see you all here tonight. I'm John Henry, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here tonight to this evening's celebration of the life of FIA film curator Ed Bradley, who passed away unexpectedly last January. Tonight we will begin the summer film series in Ed's honor, showing selections that were handpicked by him for his film appreciation class, which he taught here at the FIA. I'd like to introduce first to you our new film curator, Heather Jackson. In addition to being our collections manager, Heather has enthusiastically taken on this new role as a cinephile and one who took many of Ed's classes and attended, of course, many films here at the FIA. Heather Jackson. Heather will be organizing all future series here, including the FOMA film series. I'd like to begin this evening's celebration by acknowledging Ed's wife, Kathy, and their sons, Andrew and James, who are with us tonight. Would you mind? Thank you. Now, I know most of you here tonight knew Ed Bradley. I knew Ed since I think the first month I arrived here in 1996, because he was film critic and would write about our series. And so I met him in a different version of this room when he came to see a preview of one of our films. And fortunately, I got to know him better and better over the years. As you know, Ed was many things. He was a journalist, and as a journalist, of course, he was a writer. He was a critic. He was an editor and author of several books, a teacher, a curator, a film expert, even an archivist, and a heck of a nice guy. Everyone who knew him had a friend in Ed. So I'd like to ask you for just a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. Also with us here tonight are many of Ed's co-workers from the Flint Journal. Would you mind standing, please? Thank you all for coming. I want to pay a special thank you to all of you for purchasing a theater seat in Ed's name. Doug Poulin organized this gift in Ed's honor, and he wrote, and this is a quote, "This tribute from his former co-workers is meant to honor in perpetuity a guy who put his heart, soul, and brain into everything he did. May his memory live on forever." Amen to that. Now, Tom Cheek, who works here now, worked with Ed because both of them, in another iteration of your careers, ended up here. Tom's in charge of all our IT and pretty much manages all that happens in the projection booth along with Craig. And of course, Ed started as curator here in 2008. So, Tom, why don't you come up? I know you've got maybe a story or two that everybody'd like to hear. Would you mind? Okay, good. Thanks. Come on up. Mind if I leave that there?
I was a photographer at the Journal starting in '82, but in '91, I started playing with the computers and found that very interesting, and I switched over to the IT department. And we started going to pagination and electronics and computers and things like that. And my boss came up to me one day and he said, "Ed's yours." I said, okay. You see, Ed sat on the other side of the wall from me. I was in the IT department. He was in Tempo. At that time, he did the entertainer. So he was on the other side of the wall. Every once in a while, I see his face above my computer screen. He'd say, "It doesn't work." I said, okay. So he never say what it was. He just said, it doesn't work. I said, okay. So I went over there, and it was lit up. So I said, what part of it doesn't work? He said, "That button right there doesn't work." So I'd fix his button. He'd be all set. And next thing you know, a day or two later, there's Ed. "It doesn't work." I said, "Oh, okay. So until 2008, Ed and I sat on the other side of each other on the wall, and I fixed his computers. So I remember going home when I retired in 2008. My wife says, "Who are you going to miss the most?" I said, "I'm going to miss Ed Bradley." I said, "That guy, most people call me, they're going to put their foot through their computer if I'm not there in 5 minutes." I said, "Not Ed. He doesn't take it personal. He just goes about his work." Okay, so then I came here full time, and my office is in the theater here, and I went outside the theater one day, and here comes Ed walking down the wall. I said, "Ed, what you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to be the curator of films." I said, "Well, I'll get you a computer. Where's your office going to be?" He said, "In where yours is." I said, "On the other side of the wall?" He said, "Yep, on the other side of the wall." So I went home to my wife and I said, "You're not going to believe what happened today." I said, "He's on the other side of the wall." I said, "Right there." Ed, come back around. "Doesn't work. Doesn't work." It's okay, Ed. Sometimes if he was in a big hurry, he'd come around and he'd say, "It doesn't work, but I'm going home. I'll be in Thursday." I said, what doesn't work?" "Well, that button doesn't work." So he'd show me which one it was, and I'd fix it. But without a doubt, in 33 years of computer IT, I would rather work with Ed than anybody. This guy never took a computer personal. He never did. I remember telling him last fall sometime, I said, "You know, Ed," I said, "you ought to be in IT. I said, "You can fix these things." No. He said, "No, it's too stressful." I said, "Stressful?" I said, "You're really good at handling it." Well, what a great guy. I've truly been blessed my entire life to work on the other side of the wall with him for 30 years and fix his computer and listen to all the MSU stories, along with the computers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Now, in 2021, Linda Pillipue established the Film Society Legacy Fund to keep this film series going that we're all so proud of. And so I'd like to bring Linda up. I think you've got a story or two to share.
I do.
And thanks for all you've done for the Film Society.
Thank you. Hello. It has been my pleasure to oh, sorry. The lights, wait a minute, there. It has been my pleasure to sit beside Ed for most Sundays for the last 14 years, taking tickets for the FIA film series. If any of you are Sunday people, I'm the Sunday crew. While we waited, we would talk about movies we had seen or read about. I rarely found a movie Ed had not seen or heard about. Ed had an encyclopedic knowledge of film. He was basically a walking IMDb website. Ed was a well-regarded expert and author in the area of American cinematic history, specializing in Depression-era musicals. Who knew? He authored 4 books on this subject. His last 2 books were cited by Classic Image magazine as among the best movie books of the year. His last book was published in 2020. He loved the researching for his books. He would get so excited when he found some new archive that was available. He would plan his trips around going to see these archives and delighted in finding some fact everyone had forgotten about. That was the journalist in him. He loved discussing and teaching film, and people loved talking to him. I would sometimes have to interrupt his conversations and say, "Ed, I need a little help over here. Could you please stop talking? He would reluctantly stop talking, and the people wouldn't leave him alone. They would just stand next to him and continue to talk. I had to be the bad guy and stop the conversations. Ed was a kind and gentle soul, except when it came to sports. If any of you have ever talked to him about MSU, you know that he was a passionate fan. I happen to be a U of M fan, and it was funny. I would come around the corner on a day that maybe U of M won and MSU lost, and there'd be this look on his face like, oh, please, please don't say anything. And I would, of course, say something, and he would take it well. Now, he rarely gave it back to me. He would maybe say a little something, but he was still pretty kind when it came to U of M losing, but he hated MSU losing. All I can say is that my Sundays will never be the same again. Rest in peace, my friend.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Now, another good friend is here to share something about Ed with us. Michael Rux and Ed were a team. And boy, were they a dynamic team, always trying to put the most spectacular list of films together that they could possibly get the distributors to agree to send here. And of course, I always blame Michael for it, but I know Ed had a hand in choosing films that would always get nominated for Academy Awards. And they get canceled at the last minute. And I know many of you have run into that. Well, we've got a different film for you tonight, which you've probably seen 100 times because we only have a small library back in there for those emergencies. But they did amazing work together. Michael representing the Friends of Modern Art, and of course Ed being his sidekick and making certain that things got here on time and always worked well. In those earlier days, I'm saying earlier days is 2008, that's how fast technology is going on, but even then, we had film, and the film often needed repair. And so, I mean, it would come in broken. And so even Ed had to oversee getting that underway. So without further ado, Michael Rux.
Well, hello, movie lovers. And hello, Ed Bradley lovers. And I'm definitely one of those. Ed and I first met when I was doing the film series here long before John came. And Ed would interview me about some of the films that we planned for the years, and his knowledge of films was incredible. We could talk forever. We had the best interviews. We talked forever. And I could always guarantee a great crowd to our theaters when Ed would write a personal review of our films coming, and we would have at least a 10 to 20% increase in our crowd from his writings in The Entertainer. Man, will he be missed. He will be missed immensely. We could talk about films forever, and we always talked about the other films that we weren't able to bring here, and enjoy the joy of what real movie theater experience is like. Being in the dark with strangers, watching a picture that is greater than life, and enjoying the heck out of it. We worked together, and we did a little film as part of a fundraiser for the new digital projector that we had here. And we sort of did our Roger Ebert and Gene Sisco imitation. And we had so much fun doing it. And I used to joke, because of our rotund shape, that it was actually, two Roger Eberts. But we had so much fun. When Ed came to work here at the museum, he made my life much simpler, much, much simpler. He was, thanks, John. He was a little more organized. He'd double check and make sure that everything was going smoothly. And he had a way with keeping our volunteers forever, like Linda for 14 years on Sunday.
Oh, closer to 30.
Yeah, true. More like 30. But we had so much joy. Ed will be truly missed. I will miss him dearly. But the films will still go on. And I know that somewhere Ed is having one heck of an interview with some stars and movie makers from all of the ages. We will miss him. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Well, I think it's time to start the summer's first film. Thank you all for being here. Thank especially those of you who support the film series and keep it going. And thank all of you for your friendship to Ed and, of course, to the FIA. So, and thank our guests.